We're here at Whilton Mill to finally test the 1998 brand new kart for the first time.
In the last video, we rescued a kart that had been forgotten about since 1998 and prepared it to race in the 100 UK Championship. And here it is when we left off. And in this video, you're going to see me finish that build and test the kart on track for the first time. But before we get to the circuit, we need to finish off this build, starting with applying the new livery supplied by One Custom Motorsport Design. I hope you agree it looks absolutely stunning, so thanks again to One Custom Motorsport Design. If you need a livery for the 2025 season, use the code BRAD10 at the link in the description below for 10% off the cost of your sticker kit. Right, now this car needs an engine.
I'm here at Whilton Mill to collect my 2 engines for this year from Dave Litchfield, who just happens to be coming here today, which is quite convenient because this is my closest circuit. We're going to be spending quite a lot of time here in the next few weeks because we're testing here next week as well, and then in the new year. Hopefully it'll be slightly drier than it is today.
One really good, one not quite so good. Both done a little bit of time, get the winter out of the way, and then use the worst of the two as much as you can, and then we'll rebuild it and hopefully make it as good as the best of the two.
Awesome, thank you very much, thanks to Dave. So we're going to go get these loaded into the car now, and hopefully in a few days we'll get them out on track. Here we've got some dyno graphs for these engines. I've got no idea which is which here. Actually the other one is a little bit stronger in the middle, interestingly. Okay, cool. Right, let's get these things home. So what we've got here are our 2 engines. We've got our race engine, this one's called GP1, and we've got our practice engine. This one doesn't yet have a name, we need to come up with that, so please drop one in the comments if you've got a suggestion. What we also have here are 3 carburetors, and we've got 2 brand new ones. You can see from how shiny and silver the bottom is here, these 2 are brand new, and one older one, and they've all been dyno tested, and I've actually got the results of each of them just down here. So we've got new carb 2, new carb 1, and old carb. And what it's showing is old carb is actually the most powerful at the moment, but it's such a small margin, and I don't know which one of the 2 new ones is new carb 1 and new carb 2, and I don't think there's any way I can find that out. What we also have here is the dyno result for our 2 different exhausts. And again, as you can see, there's a slight difference between them. We've got 15.9 to 16.1 horsepower, but it's really quite a small difference again. Once again, I'm told that the newer exhaust, you can see which one that is going to get faster as it gets used more. So I think between the carburetors and the exhaust, there's not actually that much in it. And then finally, we get onto the engines themselves. Now, GP1 was sold to me as the fastest one, 0.3 of a horsepower, 16 horsepower versus 15.7. But interestingly, lower in the rev range, it's actually the spare engine that is a little bit more powerful. And it's only when we get to the top here and off up towards 15,000 revs and beyond that GP1 pulls away. So end of the straight, beginning of the straight, but certainly I know our spare engine over here doesn't have as long to go in its engine lifetime because it's already on its final bore. Essentially, it can't be bored out again, and so if anything happens to it, if we seize, if we damage it, it's dead. So we will still be using that as the practice engine. Anyway, I now have to try and figure out how these engines fit on this go-kart. So as you can see, the engine sits on the chassis quite nicely. I'm going to give this all a bit of a clean up shortly, but for the moment, that looks all right. I'm kind of happy with that. So I need to get the bottom mounts on and make sure it sits really snugly, and then obviously we can see how the exhaust fits on. I've also noticed we've got a 9-tooth sprocket. That needs to change to a 10, because I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to be using at Whilton Mill. I don't know how you change that, so we'll figure that out shortly too. I think as a starting point, that engine seems to be in roughly the right position, and I'm told the engine mount should sit roughly halfway either side of this piece of the chassis here with a side pod bar mounts on. So I think that's pretty much okay just there. So next up, I need to get this engine prepared to be able to properly bolt it on. That means changing the sprocket, giving it a good clean, changing some of the rubber anti-vibration mounts, and generally cleaning it up. This is going to take a little while. Here we go.
Shall we attempt a carburetor rebuild? Let's just take one apart and see what it actually looks like inside. I have 5 carburetors. There's one on the cart right now, and there's these 4 just here. So number 1 and number 2, these were the 2 that dynoed strongest when they were at Lichfield. These 2 I bought with a bunch of parts, and they're kind of unknown. So these are the ones that we can take apart. I've numbered them 3 and 4. So let's maybe take number 3 apart and see what it's like and try and learn what's inside one of these things and how you're supposed to rebuild it. I've got a kit to rebuild and I've got a little pressure tester thing. I just don't know how they work, so let's learn together. Okay, so this here is a rebuild kit and it consists of what I imagine are all the gaskets that are inside this. Now there's quite a few little bits, quite a few intricate pieces here. I need to try not to lose them. Look, things as small as this tiny little C washer clamp thingy. So let's carefully open this and try not to cut any of the gaskets. So far, I haven't looked at any online guides. It might have been wise to maybe check a guide before I started this. I think that's everything out of the packet. Lots and lots of gaskets. And let's get a screwdriver. It looks like just a Phillips screwdriver to undo. Now we do have some carb cleaner, so I'm sure we'll probably use that. I used to do this when I was a lot younger, when I used to race TKM in the early 2000s. But, you know, I was only doing it at an amateur level and I was a kid. I didn't really know any of this stuff. I imagine I learned what I needed to learn at the time. I mean, that all looks quite nice. So I'll put these in the order that they come off. So, tiny little filter out from in here. In fact, there's actually quite a lot of dirt in here. I mean, it all looks okay to me, but then I don't know what I'm looking at. There's a lot more pieces here than there are out over here. So I guess there's more underneath here. So let's take the bottom part off, see what it looks like. What are we going to find inside here? Doesn't want to come off easily, so we're going to get our little thin screwdriver in the gap. And as you can see, we've got a gasket stuck to the bottom of this thing here. So I'm going to remove that. Okay. We then have this rubber gasket. Oh, now there's a lot more in here. This is getting a little bit more complex. There's some mechanisms. So let's be really, really careful about this. So I don't have to attach that. I think that stays attached. It stays attached in that order. Okay, so here we go. Underneath here, you can see the jets. Interesting, but you can see the jet mechanisms inside here and how these 2 screws wind in and affect this here. It's time to start the engine, but before we do that, we need to mix the fuel. So what we have down here is 8 litres of super unleaded, and I'm going to talk to you about exactly why we use a specific fuel in just a moment, but we're going to mix that with 500 millilitres of this, so this is 2-stroke oil, and for those of you who don't know about the difference between 4-stroke and 2-stroke carts, one of them is that the oil is in the fuel. So there's no oil in the engine. What lubricates the engine is the fuel itself. So we have to get that combination and that ratio just right to make sure we don't damage the engine. So what I'm going to do is simply put 500 millilitres of this into this 8 litres that I've already measured out and then mix it up. And I'm going to use that in 2 days' time when we go testing. Some people have told me that you have to mix the fuel on the day that you're going to use it. Other people have told me they use fuel that's been in a can for about a year. So I'm pretty sure 2 days is going to be fine. And obviously I'll shake it up and remix it on the day as well. So let's start off by getting this mixed so we can get it into the cart and then we can get it started. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay, that started. Now we just need to be quicker on the throttle. Let's try again. Good morning, we're here at Whilton Mill for the first test of the new car. And it's not pouring with rain, so that's a positive. It's just damp, it has been raining. In terms of the weather though, it is absolutely crazy windy. I've just had to rescue the awning because it tried to blow away, and the cart keeps trying to blow off the stand. So that's good and bad. It's bad because it's difficult to set stuff up and difficult to make a pit area without everything falling over. It's good though because it might mean the track dries up quicker. And so with quite limited daylight, just 10 till 4 today, the on-track session, hopefully we'll get some dry running. Apart from a final nut and bolt check, I think we're pretty much ready to go. We're going to be testing out some other camera positions. We've got one just here. There's also one facing the driver, so you can see my face as I drive around. So lots and lots of things being tested out today. But the main thing is that the car runs and drives in a straight line and feels roughly right. I have absolutely no idea what it's going to feel like. These tyres are completely unknown. It's just an old set that I got with some other spare parts. Pressures are guesswork. Haven't got a clue what I'm supposed to be running here, and obviously the conditions are pretty random today too. Gearing, I think the gearing is roughly right, but maybe not for these exact conditions. And weight, again, weight is going to be guesswork because circuits and Whilton Mills included in this don't tend to actually turn on their scales during test days, which is bonkers since testing your weight is one of the main things that you need to get right. If you're watching this Whilton Mill or other kart tracks, please turn on the blooming scales on a test day. It's very important. We'll get the cart wheeled out onto the grid, we'll get some promo shots. I managed to run over the tripod and snap it. I have to try and get someone to hold the camera for me, but aside from that, we're pretty much ready to go. It was great to see some friends of the channel at the circuit whilst we were waiting to start, and one of those was Ollie Hancock from Used OTK. And he wasn't the only familiar face. Alex Van Geen's here, and he's helping me change wheels because it's damp and I don't really want to go out on slicks in the damp for my very first shakedown. What's different about this car, Alex?
They got bigger nuts.
And before long, it was time to get to the dummy grid for the very first session. So here we go. This is going to be the first shakedown run. So don't expect ballistic lap times. You're going to see karts overtake us because we're out with Rotaxes and quicker people in this kind of car. And I'm going to just hopefully get to the end of the session and come into the pit with nothing having fallen off. But you're about to find out how that goes. Let's do it. But just before I head out onto the track, I want to tell you about a free kart event which is coming up in February 2025 for the first 25 members of this channel. Yes, you heard that right. To give you a chance to sample the brand new karts and amazing new track layout at South Coast Karting, I've teamed up with the folks there to offer members of this channel completely free entry into a rental karting tournament on the 23rd of February 2025. You'll be racing against other channel members and well-known YouTubers to try and take home a fantastic trophy. This is open to all tiers of membership, and that means you can join the channel for just £2.99 and be eligible to come and join us at this race event. Terms and conditions apply. Check out the full details in the description of this video. And while you're there, don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. Now back to the action at Whilton Mill. Already I've found some stuff that I want to change in between sessions. I need to move my throttle pedal and my brake further away. The shift lights are going to be going nuts because I've forgotten to change the maximum, and so they're set to come on like flashing at about 5,500
still
or something.
set for your GX car.
Yeah, so they're going to be going 10,000 revs more. It might explode. Okay, so we're finally out. We're finally out in the cart that we built in the garage. And I'm getting my first impressions. Now I've noticed straight away that the revs are stopping at 6,700. So we're going to have to change that. Wow, the front end feels great. We're going to have to change the settings on the Alfano. Oh, I've got way more front end than I thought. That's good. Okay, now Ben up here is on slicks. So we should be quicker than Ben. Let's see if we can catch him up. Now Ben's driving the car that I drove last time I was here. Now you haven't seen that video unless you're a channel member. So if you're not a channel member and you want to see that, then join the channel and you'll have access to bonus content. But for the moment, let's just enjoy this part. So Ben's braking offline because it's drier there. That was very clever of him. Wow, this car feels great. This car feels awesome. I don't really know where it's wet and where it's dry, so I'm just trying to figure it out. We're definitely going to be on slicks for the next session. Oh, the car feels lovely. Lovely. Very, very slippery through turn 1, that's all. The smell is amazing. I'm just so happy that the front end feels good. It's got so much more front end than I expected. Now I know we're on wet, but it should have even more when we're on slicks. I'm just listening out for noises. I want to make sure nothing's falling off that I haven't noticed. Oh, nasty curve. To the wet patch there. So far, the main takeaway is that it handles really nicely. I'm so happy. I know it's on wet. I know it's not giving me the full picture, and I know the wets are massively overheating now. But okay, we've got a yellow flag here. I know we're on wet, I know the conditions aren't really ideal, the rears are massively overheating, but I can feel I've got front end, it feels good. Oh, it's lovely. I think maybe our positive camber was a good thing. No grip because these wets are dying. Okay, you know what? I think we're going to come in to avoid destroying these wets anymore. I'm not really learning anything. We're going to fix the lap timer. That's the correct word. Oh, sweet. Okay, so positives. Everything. The kart felt amazing. I had loads of front end. I was expecting massive understeer. It just did what I wanted it to. So the problem now is I couldn't really judge what was going on with the rear because the rear tyres were just cooked, completely overheated. So we're going to need to change the slicks, run again with like the normal setup. But yeah, good first impressions. Let's check everything's tight. But seat position actually felt good. The kart didn't want to pull away very easily from a standstill, so we need to check that. But yeah, the wets are just dying. So cool, session 1 done.
That was actually way better than I expected. You can probably tell from my grin, and you will have heard what I was saying, hopefully out on track. Basically, the kart handled just much better than I expected, especially considering it was so slippery out there. So I'm going to have to take that with a bit of a pinch of salt because we were on wet and not on a normal dry setup, obviously. So this is going to be slightly different now we're out on slicks.
and maybe the slicks are going to feel a whole lot different, but as a starting point, I'm happy with that. Over here, Alex is helping by setting my revs correctly on the steering wheel because it was just showing 6,750 as a max the whole time, which obviously is for a GX kart. We're just going to put it on slicks now and send it again. I'll check the chain, lube everything, send it again. Let's see if we can do a full session this time. So not really a lot of scrapes, considering we're at Whilton. So on to session 2, and the aim here was really just to get used to the car on slick tyres and hopefully get them warm enough to get some kind of performance.
Okay, there we go. Slick tyres. Let's get some heat in them. Let's get some heat in these slick. I think the side pod's hitting the floor. Wow, these tyres are cold. So that's a Rotax, obviously. That's head. I didn't really know that line. Okay, we need to improve in the Christmas. I need to slow it down earlier. Let's start more entry speed.
As the tyres began to warm up, I started to understand how to drive these karts a little better, but I certainly was not on top of it. I still had plenty more to learn. There were quite a few things I was trying to get my head around simultaneously. So the kart itself does feel different to a modern car. And really I think a large part of that is due to the size of it. It's a much smaller platform than what I'm used to, but also the tyres that are in use in this series. The slick we're using here is notoriously hard. So not only does it take a while to get the tyre temperature into it, but it's never really particularly grippy, even once it's hot. So you can't rely on a large amount of front grip when you're turning into a corner at a high speed. You have to get that speed scrubbed off, or get the angle of the car adjusted before you get into the apex of each corner. As I approached the end of my first dry session, it was all starting to make a little bit more sense, and I was gradually unlearning the techniques that I'd used at this circuit when I raced Rotax here a couple of years ago.
Pretty happy with that. We need to go in a little bit on the rears because we're slightly too oversteery, but I also need to learn to live with that a bit more. Apart from turn 1, where we're losing about 4/10 from oversteer, mainly it's me adapting to how you have to stop early, get it turned, and then drive through and use the throttle to rotate it. It's very, very different to when you have grippier fronts. These front tyres feel like they're made of stone, and so if you lean on them for tyre scrub entry grip, it just doesn't do anything. You'll just go wide. So it's mainly on me, but yeah, good session. It's just really adapting to different muscle memory. It's a very, very different way of driving to what I've been doing in the last few years. So as I said before, you can't rely on the front end to bite. You have to rotate the car on throttle, which is cool, it's fun. There's a lot more sideways, which is nice, and this car does seem lovely. Yeah, this car has been a dream to drive so far. I'm really enjoying it. Let's see if we can get another one in before it rains. If it does rain, we'll go out in the rain. We'll just put wets on. It's all learning. So, right, see you on the next one. So after successfully bump starting my own car once again, I somehow managed this almost every session during the day. I was back out for some serious running in the dry. Now in total, I ran 5 sessions during this test. But as the day wore on, the light level dropped significantly and the cameras really didn't pick up the images very well. So here I'm giving you a snapshot of some of the better dry running in the early afternoon. So I hope you enjoy watching me learn how to get the best out of this car and setting some relatively respectable lap times. Okay, so we went quicker. I didn't feel like I drove as well, maybe getting a little bit tired. It was quicker, but we were lacking rear grip on the like the second half of the session, so I couldn't really go quicker because I was held back by the rear. So I think maybe come down a couple of psi and go in another ½ centimetre each side. So there we go, that's the plan. Well, there we go, successful test day. We didn't really have any significant issues. The side pod bar was scraping on the floor, and in fact we went through a couple of bolts. They just wore the heads off the bolts completely because it was rubbing on the floor so much. But I kind of knew that was going to be a problem, and if you saw video 1 in this series, then you'll also have seen that we knew the side pod bars were a bit too low. So that's got a solution in place. We're going to be fixing that before the next time we're out at the start of January. The only other issue was when I forgot to tighten up the chain guard. So that's just me. So in terms of the kart itself, it's held together really, really well. Nothing has broken. It felt good. I've still got more to learn in terms of the driving, but I felt like even today, I've gained quite a lot of special knowledge on how to get more out of these karts, so I'm pretty happy with that. So plans going forward, there's a test on the 2nd of January, and so I need to get the kart prepped for that. It needs a good clean. There's quite a lot of checking to do. I'll strip it down a little bit and get that ready, but I'm just really happy nothing fell off. It was pretty quick. I think we were like roughly on the pace. I need to get onto the pace myself quicker relative to the top guys, but what's nice is the guys here in 100 UK that I was testing with are absolute front runners, so if we're near those guys then we're looking relatively good. Engine felt strong, I didn't screw anything up. It uses a lot more fuel than I expected, so I need to buy more fuel. All round positive day. Guys, thank you so much for watching this series so far. There's more coming up. We've got some more testing over the winter. There's other karting content coming on this channel too, and some sim racing, and obviously we've got the race season coming up early next year. But from me here at Whilton Mill today, thanks so much for watching, thanks for following along, and I'll see you on the next one. Love you, bye.